you for being here, and congratulations on this extraordinary piece of work. Tom Chiwetel, I wanted to start with you, because we've been around some of our venues to introduce the film, and you've both said, been really complimentary about the experience of making this film. So I wanted to ask you, what about Mike as a director made the experience of filming The Life of Chuck so wonderful for you?
I mean, as soon as you say that, immediately, I just think of his heart. And I think it's an extraordinary act of courage for any artist to lead with their heart. And it's, I was so inspired by that of how personally moved he had been by the story and how much of himself he poured into it. Which is the risk, I think, of any great artist, is it's the daring to say, this matters to me, I care about it. And only then do you stand a chance of it mattering to others, I think. And it was so clear from the screenplay and so clear from our first conversation how much heart he had and how much he wanted to put into it. And I loved joining that atmosphere, and the risk for me was like, how much heart can I put into it? So yeah, that's my instinctive answer.
I had, I think that's the first Zoom we had was, we just had this great sort of wide-ranging conversation. I was very affected by the script. I just thought it really tapped into something that was incredibly meaningful, and actually in that period, just after kind of COVID, it just felt that everybody could understand the dynamics of that first part of the story in a really personal way that would have been impossible even just a few years before. And so we had this great conversation, and I, actually much like Tom was saying, was just struck by Mike's heart, passion, and emotion for the project, and Tracy, Trevor as well, Trevor Macy, the producer, and then coming over to start shooting, and just as I was saying before, really just being struck by how the entire cast and crew were engaged in a very specific way in wanting to tell this story, and wanting to tell the story with Mike. There was just an enormous amount of passion involved from everybody, and it really allowed for me and any other member of the cast to kind of really step into this world in a really rich way. So.
And Mike, you're no stranger to the work of Stephen King, having adapted him several times before, but what about the change of register? You mentioned it at the start as well, the combination of Mike Flanagan and Stephen King sets a certain kind of expectation, but The Life of Chuck offers us something quite distinct and very different. So what was it about this story that attracted you so much?
Well, I had an undeniable emotional reaction to reading it. And when I read it the first time, it was April 2020, the pandemic was brand new. I felt like the world was ending. The thing about Stephen King, though, is that this isn't actually so much of a departure for him, I think, because all of his work is infused with this optimistic humanism, even the really dark stuff. And what struck me about this was that everything else was absent. There wasn't any cynicism. The darkness that was in there didn't feel frightening or other. It was just kind of the inevitability of what it means to exist and live and die. And it hit me very hard. I mean, the feeling I had when I finished the story for the first time, and I was actually crying, and I put the book down, and I said to my wife, I was like, I think it's extraordinary. It's the best movie that will never get made. It's the best movie I'll never make. And I wanted desperately to do it. But yeah, I think Stephen King's heart shone so unobstructed kind of through the text that that's what really drew me to it.
And Chiwetel, we start the film with your character. It really is like 3 movies in one. How do you play a character who is convinced and actually lives in a world that is about to end?
Yeah,